Hi Year 12. Today I'm going to take you through feedback for your child-directed speech essays, which was the 2017 paper. So, you can pause on this if you want to. It's the examiner's report, which was basically a bullet point of all the different things, like the content you could have included. And I've highlighted obviously the most important bits in yellow. I think what's really positive about this is you're including all the right things. A lot of you have talked about, you've precise labeled language. You've talked about, I'm just starting at the bottom because I'm backwards. Patterns of repetition you talked about phonology and the nana and the banana. Some of you included the stage that Jace could possibly be at. Most of you established a debate in the introduction. Just go into the top. I think the part where we're falling down at the minute is bullet point 2. You are examining the mother's language choices, but then you're not considering how effective they are by analysing Jace's response. Now, some of you are doing that, but most of us aren't, and that's the key to evaluating whether CDS is effective, is if it works with the child. Does the child respond? Does it work? Can they understand? And if the child doesn't understand it, then obviously, or doesn't react to it, or show evidence they've comprehended it, then there's not evidence there that CDS is working. So that was an element that was missing from our essays. There was less focus from you about where the mother did not use CDS. You did have precise knowledge of theories. The problem is that it's the way we're using them that's the problem. So just to stay positive, you've got all of the things in here in your essays that you need. Lots of you mentioned positive and negative reinforcement, other cultures. The problem is that it is the way we're using them, and that's to be expected at this stage. And it has made me feel like we need to spend a little bit longer on not on child directed speech, on child language development before we move on to our coursework. So I've not given you grades for your essays because I'm not going to go through all this, but you've got your mark scheme here and you can pause on each slide if you want to, but we're a bit all over the place at the minute. Some of you are describing for level 5 the the phonemes, and you're pinning down plosives, etc. In terms of phonology really, really well, which would get you level 5. But then at other points you've not got the range. You've not got those levels of language analysis that we'd want to see to get you there. So that's, we're all kind of dipping in and out of each of these levels as we move through our essays. And the same for your AO2. Some of you are evaluating really, really well, which would obviously put you up on level 5. But then maybe not necessarily getting the knowledge there, and that kind of, see, for level 3 you need detailed knowledge of linguistic ideas. You might be taking an evaluative approach, but it's not being backed up by really solid, thorough knowledge, or a range of really good, solid case studies or theories to support what you're saying. Whereas other people, I've got really good detailed knowledge, but then aren't necessarily evaluating it. So again, we're kind of all over the place, which again is understandable at this point. All right, so my overall class feedback, and I'd like you to write this down. Obviously your essays were typed, so if you're able to print your essay, then add it to your essay on Word. But if you're not, can you write this on line paper so it can go into your folder, please, your assessment folder, preferably in green pen if you've got one. So we are taking an evaluative approach, which is really nice to see. We've got our howevers in there, we've got our those, or a different way of interpreting something. And you are really all using the transcript, which is a really big plus. You're labelling examples of CDS, you obviously understand it, and your terminology is good. They were really good, solid, what went wells. Our next steps are that a lot of the time our theories are just tagged on, or they're not, made relevant to the question. So this is where it gets hard. This is I think one of the toughest essays for your A level, because you can't just take what you know and write it down. You need to be shaping what you know about that theory or that case study or the evidence, and thinking, well, how does this apply to this question? You really need to think like a lawyer. You've got a piece of evidence in front of you. is this going to support what your case that you're trying to make, or is this actually something that the opposite side would argue? And then you need to think about how you can also make it relevant to child-directed speech. So things like the pronoun errors and how parents will mimic children will mimic pronoun errors. Well, that's not directly linked to child-directed speech, is it? So you need to tweak, and if you can't make it relevant, you need to drop the theory. You will not do yourself any favors by just showing off loads of different theoretical knowledge if you can't make it relevant to the question. So this is kind of what I've just said, really. Look for links between the theories and child-directed speech. So you need to apply and transfer what you know in the context of the question, and that requires a layer of thought. You need to step back as part of your plan and think, what's going to help me make a case for this statement and what's going to help me make a case against this statement. Okay, so how to write an introduction. Can you do this as a subheading? Because I've just got 2 examples of good introductions for you here. And then I'll go through what's good about them and any EBIs. So this first one, child-directed speech is a type of speech that caregivers and other more knowledgeable others may use when speaking to a child. Many people believe this type of speech is an effective way of helping children's language to develop. However, it can also be disproven, as in some non-Western countries, children are expected to just blend with all the adults and their language still develops. Child-directed speech involves a caregiver giving numerous diminutives and concrete nouns, along with lots of interrogatives and imperatives. Another main feature of child-directed speech is the use of a higher or melodic pitch. This is where the caregiver sings to the child. Okay, so what's really good is that they've summarised the key arguments for and against child-directed speech, and they've shown a really good understanding of that in the opening paragraph. So as an examiner, you would know immediately this student understands child-directed speech. They understand the features of it. They're probably going to go on to identify these in the transcript. And they've got that however in there. They've got that debate already established. If you're going to write an evaluative essay, you need to be debating from the start. My EBI here would be don't say many people believe, say many linguists believe. Let's focus on the people who talk about language, that's the word that we should be using to summarize all of our theorists, all of our experts, anyone who's ever made a career about talking about language. They're not allowed to be people anymore. They are just linguists. Okay. And here's another one. Overall, it could be argued that child-directed speech is effective if a child understands it. That's really good because it pins down the whole point of child-directed speech, which is as long as your child can comprehend you, then it's working. Is engaged in the conversation, is comforted, and their language is improved, which all allow children to develop a correct dialect. So you've got there a whole host of reasons why, according to linguists, child-directed speech is effective. Many researchers conclude, that's really nice synthesis, that CDS is a species-specific behaviour which has evolved to improve the communication between caregivers and their children. Theorists such as Catherine Snow argue that CDF facilitates a child's development, although Piaget and Vygotsky argue the importance of the wider world in cognitive development, suggesting other factors have more importance. So we've got a really nice synthesis of the theorists there. We've got Snow versus Piaget and Vygotsky, which is a really nice outline. So it's just that to me is a perfect introduction. It outlines the overall argument on both sides, and they've summarised key theories for and against. I don't know why my laptop has decided to become American in its spelling of summarised. I apologise. If you want to write that down as a model example, you can, but as long as you've learnt from it and you remember for next time, that's what matters. Okay, I'm just going to go through now how to construct an evaluative argument and use your theories effectively. So this paragraph, I feel, really kind of teaches you or emphasize basically how you can adapt what you're doing currently with your theorists. So the way some of you are just tagging them on or not using them to build an argument, this paragraph does it really, really well. Because I'm a timer, I have no idea what the first highlight is on the top line, so I'm just going to miss that out, but obviously you'll be able to see it. CDS is a major factor though. So the tone there is because in the previous paragraph she'd been arguing that CDS is not a major factor. So CDS is a major factor though, as in the transcript the mother uses something of the interrogative sentences and concrete nouns such as where's the balloon and banana, whilst using exaggerated sing-song intonation, which helps the child to emphasize keywords and exaggerate the difference between statements, questions and commands. So we've got here secure use of the transcript, and we've got secure in the things that are highlighted, secure terminology to identify features of child-directed speech. But also what's really good is that she's pinned down why it works. It helps the child to emphasize keywords. It helps to exaggerate the difference in tone. So pinning down why it's effective, because that's relevant for the question. So now she's made her own point, her own argument about the transcript. Now she's going to link to a theorist. So this could be reflective. Reflective is a really good word to link as well. Of Bryant and Barrett's 2007 study on offshore adults that concluded that they could identify if a person speaking an unknown language was using CDS or ADS and understand if it was for approval, comfort or prohibition. Now, just a note on that theory, it is spot on. That's the perfect theory to back up the idea that just by using sing-song intonation, the mother's making it clear what kind of tone she's using. And here's a study that supports that argument, because people in this study, these adults, could understand if it was a command, a question, a statement. So rightly then she goes on to say, this proves that CDS is effective as you can understand meaning without knowing the semantics of conversation or the specific vocabulary. So here's my argument at the top, here's my evidence in the transcript, here's a theorist to support me, and here's a concluding statement explaining why that's the case. So if you can kind of try and follow that 3-step approach, then that will help you get really good marks in terms of how you're using the theorist for your AO2. The paragraph does continue, however. So what happens now is we develop the argument. So the CDS features are responded to by Jace correctly. So this is what I was talking about, and you'll see in your feedback, a lot of you have got this as an EBI. You can't tell us that CDS is effective without checking to see how the child reacts. He continues to babble and engage throughout the entirety of the interactions, proving CDS to facilitate Jace's learning. So remember, CDS is not just about getting a child to understand what you're saying. It is also about those other things: comfort, engagement, just wanting to make noise. Furthermore, the use of the mother repeating the child's own words, the weak syllable deletion of Nana, good AO1 there, shows that the mother is facilitating Jace's learning. I'm sorry, I can't see the next bit. And this is reflective of Jerome Brunner's social interactionism theory, suggesting that here the mother is a language acquisition support system. So what we've got here is a really good use of Brunner, and others of you have used Brunner but maybe not embedded it quite like this. So the fact that the mother has repeated the child's words and kind of repeated the mistake basically shows that the mother here is caring more about interaction and is working as that support system rather than caring about getting it exactly right. So we've got an absence of Skinner here. So this is suggestive. Again, it's linked straight back to CDS all the time. This is suggestive that CDS is a major factor in a child's language learning because the child is experiencing various social situations. Because the child experiencing various social situations affects and improves language learning. The last is also providing scaffolding, which improves the quality of facilitating language learning. Therefore, it could be viewed that although CDS is not necessary to language learning, the child benefits enormously from CDS, which allows them to learn the functions of language, as well as communicating their meanings and effective utterance, whilst making maternal bonds with their caregivers. So we've got an evaluative approach to the end of the paragraph, and we've got a really nice, really thorough, thoughtful consideration of what CDS can do. So hopefully you can see there that you've got a really kind of a clear system of use the transcript, come up with your own argument about CDS, find a theorist to support you, and then conclude by pinning it down. And then if you can, go on to find further evidence in the transcript to further support what you're arguing about CDS. And always remember to step back at every stage and think, is there a counter argument here? Or do you want to just do your counter argument in a different paragraph? But please, whatever you do not forget to argue the opposite side to the statement, because then you're not evaluating and you're definitely not going to get our level 3. So just to summarise, this is the feedback that I gave for this paragraph. Valid argument, an important one to balance the anti-CDS of recent paragraphs. So just before that, there have been quite a few paragraphs saying why CDS wasn't important. You've considered how Jace responds when weighing up the importance of CDS. Terminology is used naturally. It's a nice evaluative conclusion. You've built up to this well. Everything that comes before it builds up to that final sentence. Bryant and Barrett is particularly effective and clearly influences your concluding line. So I hope that you can learn from that how to build up the main body of your essay, really. Okay, so that paragraph is taken from Abby's essay, and I am going to send Abby's essay to all of you, and I would like you to keep it as a kind of model. I'm not saying, you know, there are other really good examples in other people's essays, but I feel like Abby's from start to finish was a really good model of what a good essay looks like for CDS. For child language. So your next steps then, if you handed in your essay, which most of you did do, so thank you. I would like you to ideally print off your marked essay, which I've emailed to you personally, and put it in your assessment folder. But obviously, if you can't, we'll have to sort it out when we're back in college. Can you make sure that you saved your marked essay to personal drive so it doesn't get lost in your emails? And then can you write yourself a letter, please, again in green pen, just under the notes you've made from this video, summarising your key wet and wells and EBIs and what you've learned. Oh, I've already said that. Now, because I am going to stay on child language for next week, I am going to ask you to kind of try and improve on your target for your next essay. So can you make sure that you think really carefully about what your EBI is going to be? You can go back to the mark scheme if you want and freeze the video on it and kind of use that to pin down. But at the end, you know, you've all got EBIs that I've written for you on your essays, so you've got lots to choose from. Right, those few of you who didn't hand in your essay, obviously you can't do any of that. So what I'd like you to do instead is to use Abby's essay, please. So I want you to read Abby's essay, and I also want you to read the feedback that I gave to her. And I want you to write yourself a letter summarising 6 things that you've learnt from Abby's essay, and step back then and think, which of those do you think you would find most difficult, or which of those do you think you wouldn't have thought to include in your own essay, and that can be your key target moving forward. Okay, once you have done this, I would like you to just send me a quick picture, please, of your work that you've done on it, so that I know that it's done. Obviously, I've spent a long time marking them, and I don't want it to be for nothing. And it'll kind of, if this isn't done, then you're probably going to make the same mistakes next time. So just send me a quick email, attach a photo of your notes and your letters, please. Yeah, I feel too positive to highlight this, really, but this was an essay that was set before isolation began. But I'm feeling too positive this morning. It's my birthday tomorrow, so I don't want to have a moan at you today. So there you go. Especially because there's only like 3 of you. Right, we don't need that. I included it in case I wanted to refer to it. So that is it. Please go forth now and do your dirt and enjoy. And let me know if you've any questions or anything doesn't make sense in the feedback that I've written for you. Yeah, have a lovely weekend, and I will speak to you on Tuesday for our next lesson. Bye.